Hey everybody, welcome back to Battle Ready Inc. So today's deck profile, we're going over Rosemon, usually the lesser choice between this and Bloom for which green deck you want to be playing right now. But I think there's a huge calling for Rosemon for a lot of fans and things like that. I think the deck still is very strong. The burst mode definitely elevates it, and now with the new secondary Mega and the new Evo line for support, the deck has everything it needs to run and pop off. It's a little bit match dependent because to get the ideal use out of your burst mode, you want your opponent to be running a decent amount of things on their field, and if you're playing against a deck that doesn't exactly put up a big board presence, then the deck will suffer in that. But that's really the only time it suffers. If you're playing just any other deck, except for very, very few decks that don't like to go like super big, Tamers or Digimon, either way, then the deck can suffer. But most cases, this deck is still super solid. Also, don't forget to check out our Etsy page, link in the description below. There you can find all the memory markers that we featured on the channel in the past for you guys. If there's a deck you're playing right now, we've probably got a perfect memory marker that'll go absolutely amazing with the deck that you're on, as well as check out our new merch that we've got up. We've got some really cool acrylics that are we have available now. Everything is handmade by my wife, hand painted as well. So very, very cool stuff there. You got keychains, fridge magnets. You could even use those acrylics as memory markers if you so choose. So definitely go check out that. Lots of cool stuff. Okay, as always, I have the whole deck profile pulled up for you guys so you can follow along and see what we're doing here. We are over on cards, yes, just because at the bottom here we have a couple talking points that I want to get to and I don't want to forget about. So the ideal of the deck, of course, is to go into burst mode here as soon as possible, really, but it is a little bit dependent on what your opponent does as well. So we'll go ahead and do the card by card and jump into this. First up for the baby, I dropped the Argomon that we featured in the match video and instead went for the Cocomon, the same as we use for Bloom Lord. Just when an effect suspends one of your Digimon, draw one card. The deck really needs to see its consistency as much as possible. You got to have all your pieces to pop off. You really need to see everything. And so Digisorption, as well as like our level 4 effects on our Sunflowers, and as well as our Togemons, all of our level 5s except for the Lilamon. Like, we're doing tons and tons of suspending our own Digimon. So Cocomon, very live for this deck. Now, I did say I was running the Argomon originally, just that when you unsuspend during your unsuspend phase, gain that extra memory, just for a more explosive turn. But really, this deck is very self-sufficient at doing what it needs to do with the amount of memory it has. Like, it's actually super incredibly memory efficient. So the Argomon bonus memory isn't overly needed, as well as when you're relying on this, you're basically having to leave like a level 5 or something suspended on the field to get this. So I just never really got too much good value out of that. The other option, though, is Gummymon for EX2. When an opponent's Digimon becomes suspended, draw one. Again, more consistency there. So we have effects, like on all of our Rosemons, as well as our burst mode here, that we're suspending our opponent's Digimon. So this can help facilitate that a little bit better. But my thought is, by the time I'm getting up into the Mega, I've already got full combo. So that extra draw at that point isn't really all that needed. I need the draw power when I'm trying to get up into that point. So level 4s and level 5s. So Cocomon it is. Now for our rookie lineup, we've got the BT10 Palmon. This is the reveal 4, add 1 plant and or vegetation and 1 fairy. So our high end, of course, is going to be our fairies, and our low end is going to be our vegetation. Lilamon, though, is a fairy, so she's the only part of the pseudo low end. I know level 5s are kind of like a middle ground, but she's the only one of the low end-ish that's a fairy. But a great searcher for the deck. We also have the Lalamon, which is reveal 3, add a vegetation plant or fairy, and 1 Yoshino. Yoshino is like absolutely pivotal for this. Any sort of burst mode deck, it doesn't matter if you're playing like Galgamon or you're playing Shine Greymon, you have to see the tamer that's associated with the burst mode. So having a searcher that can add that specific tamer is incredibly important. So of course this is our primary searcher for the deck. And also great inheritable. Your turn, once per turn. When this Digimon would Digivolve, if you have a green tamer, reduce the Digivolution cost by 1. So the idea is to play the tamer for free off of the Lilamon here. So her, when Digivolving, will play our tamer for free. And then when you Evo into the Mega, you're going to have your inheritable here online to gain you or help reduce the Digivolution cost of your Rosemons. Now, for our next rookie here, though, we have the new BT14 Palmon. This main effect is pretty solid for this deck because, again, we do a lot of suspending with our Megas here. Start of your main phase, one of your opponent's Digimon gains all turns. When this Digimon becomes suspended, lose 2 memory until the end of their turn. So pretty powerful card there, but also I really like it in here because the inheritable, your turn, once per turn. When this Digimon would Digivolve, if you have a green tamer, reduce the Digivolution cost by 1. So it's the same thing as our Lalamon here. It's just a backup inheritable. I know with like Bloom and stuff, they're not an overly big fan of this because they don't like to rely on this. But really, this is in here for this inheritable. I'm just gonna be Evoing.
Mommy likes that card.
She sure does. So yeah, it's just in here as a backup inheritable for the raising area, basically. Now moving on to our level 4s here, we have the BT10 Sunflowermon. When Digivolving, by suspending one of your green Digimon, ideally, or more often not, your target is going to be this Digimon. You may play one Digimon card with Vegetation Plant or Fairy in its traits, and 3,000 DP or less from your hand without paying its play cost. So a good one for this is, of course, to play out like one of your searchers to help you dig for something. When an effect suspends one of your Digimon, draw one for the inheritable here. But our primary one is going to be this Sunflowermon. So main effect here, so like you're opening, if you're going first, your ideal is go Lalamon or Palmon, and then 2 Evo cost to pass turn into this BT13 Sunflowermon. By suspending this Digimon, one of your Digimon may Digivolve into a Digimon card with Fairy in one of its traits in their hand for the Digivolution cost. When it would Digivolve by this effect, reduce the Digivolution cost by 2. So again, our Lilamon there is a Fairy. So using this effect, we can Evo for 1 into our Lilamon, which will then play out our Yoshino. So that's a big, like the big main play that you want to do with this. So yeah, the Lilamon is, of course, our go-to for this effect in particular. And then the inheritable, same thing. When this Digimon would Digivolve, if you have a green tamer in play, reduce the Digivolution cost by 1. So we just keep stacking up these inheritables that make our final Evo incredibly, incredibly cheap. And then rounding it out, just for another target here, I've got the new BT14 Togemon. So your turn, when you would play a green tamer card from your hand, by suspending one of your green Digimon, reduce the play cost by 3. One of the plays I like to do is like use this Sunflowermon to then play out this Togemon, and then this Togemon will suspend itself to then play out our tamer for 1 Evo cost. So it's mainly in case you don't have the Lilamon. If you don't have the Lilamon and you have to go an alternate Evo route, such as like the Cherrymon or Blossommon, then you need to find a way to play your Yoshinos for way more memory efficient than 4 play cost. So that's when this comes in. Also, again, more redundancy on the inheritable. Your turn, once per turn. When this Digimon would Digivolve, if you have a green tamer in play, reduce the Digivolution cost by 2. So just like with this Palmon, having the backup inheritable for us for the Lilamon or Lalamon, the Togemon is our backup for this Sunflowermon inheritable. So a lot of synergies here. Even if you don't go this, you go, say you go Togemon here, and then you go like Digizorption into like one of your other level 5s, you know, you can still at least pop off with this inheritable here. So pretty good. I like the redundancy, so we don't have to see very specific cards to have a full power play. We can see other Evo lines and still be just as solid at popping off. Of course, our primary level 5 is the Lilamon that plays the Yoshino for free when she Digivolves. Yeah, she's a big 3 Evo cost, but remember, if you're using the new Sunflowermon, it's only going to be a 1 Evo cost because of the reduction effect going into a Fairy. Very, very powerful. Also, for this one, I kind of skipped over it, but you could suspend her to then Evo into one of your Rosemons. Like, say you've got a level 5 and this Sunflower both on field, you can suspend herself, then evo that level 5 into your fairy for cheaper. And then the Lilamon Inheritable, while your opponent has a suspended Digimon, this Digimon gains security attack +1. Very powerful effect here for this. We really like this. Burst Mode can't trash everything by herself, but she can get really close to it. And this Lilamon pretty much just kind of seals the deal for you. Very aggressive deck. Big fan of it. Our backup level 5 though, I went with Cherrymon Digivolution or Digizorption 2, so it's a 1 evo cost if you Digizorps, and then it has that redirect effect of opponent's turn once per turn. When an opponent's Digimon attacks, you may switch the target of attack to one of your suspended Digimon. It doesn't have to specifically be Cherrymon. It can be any of your suspended Digimon. So extremely, extremely good. Also works to like redirect away. Like, oh, I'm going to swing over your Rosemon. Well, I'm going to use Cherrymon to redirect you into one of my suspended rookies, you know. So that's really good. So I went with a 3 of on that, and only so the 1 of blossoms, the Digizorption 3, so it's a free Evo cost into this, which allows us to stair step into our Mega very, very efficiently. But it is limited to 1, so Cherrymon makes up for it. Most people run Argomon in something like Bloomlord. But for me, like, this is a mutant virus type. It's not, we don't get any of that. We can't add it off of any of our searches because it's not a plant, vegetation, or fairy. So we can't hit it there off of anything. So, you know, it kind of loses its value for us a little bit. And then we're, so that, you know, that's a bit of a bummer. And then the Inheritable, when attack, you may play 1 level 3 green Digimon from your hand suspended without paying the memory cost. And something like Bloom, where the more suspended things you have, absolutely run Argomon. It's super, super strong, but in this, like, another suspended body doesn't help us that much. So I just went with the Cherrymon just to keep up with the vegetation here. If you really want to run the Argomon even still, you could drop the Cherrymon down to 2 and throw in the Argomon, and it still works out. Now for our Megas, I went with the BT13 as our primary Rosemon. So when Digivolving, by suspending one of your opponent's Digimon or Tamers, unsuspend this Digimon, because like I said earlier, your level 4s are going to suspend themselves to do whatever effect they're going to do, and then you're going to evo into your level 5s here, or even if you Digizorptioned one of your level 5s, you know, to evo itself for super cheap, you're going to need this Rosemon here to unsuspend itself. So more often than not, your level 5 is going to be suspended that you're evoing on top of. So unsuspending itself is super important. All turns once per turn, when an opponent's Digimon or Tamer becomes suspended, suspend one of your opponent's Digimon or Tamers. This is really powerful. Like if your opponent attacks, you can suspend one of their other Digimon that, you know, isn't attacking. So keep that in mind. It's an all turns effect. For whatever reason they get suspended. Next, we got the new BT14 Rosemon. When Digivolving, when attacking, suspend one of your opponent's Digimon or Tamers once per turn, or your turn once per turn. When effect suspends a Digimon or Tamer, you may unsuspend this Digimon. So it's a little bit similar to that one that we're seeing there. But it's not as powerful. So at least it's a double whammy. So when Digivolving and when attacking, not once per turn here. So you're going to Digivolve, suspend something, swing, and suspend something else. Whereas this Rosemon is just like, yeah, I just going to, you know, suspend something, unsuspend myself, and then suspend something else in addition to that, as well as I can suspend stuff on the opponent's turn. Sorry about that pop-up. So just a little bit more powerful than the other version. And then, of course, our top end, our final Digimon of the deck here, we have Rosemon Burst Mode. So if you're not familiar, when you Evo Burst Mode on top of your other Rosemons, you're going to return Yoshino to your hand to Evo for free. Keep in mind, the official ruling is you have to return the Tamer to hand first, and then you place the Burst Mode on top of the other Digimon. Big debate about that in the European nets. So very, very unfortunate that we saw it work out like that. So keep in mind, yeah, bounce the Yoshino first, then put this card on the table. When Digivolving, suspend one of your opponent's Digimon and one of their Tamers until the end of your opponent's turn. All of their Digimon and Tamers don't unsuspend. So even if like the Burst Mode dies and like when it swings or something like that, they still can't unsuspend. Even if the whole Rosemon Burst Mode stack goes to the trash, they still can't get that unsuspend during their turn at all. So it's not just their unsuspend phase, but it's their whole turn. They don't unsuspend. And then when attacking, trash the top card of your opponent's security stack for every 2 of your opponent's suspended Digimon and or Tamers. So kind of like Quartzmon, but this one is limited to only your opponent's side of the field, but at least it counts Digimon and Tamers. So, but again, it's only what they play. So unlike Quartzmon, where you have to have more things, it also counts your own field. So that's really good. So you can really like bump up a Quartzmon yourself, like in Bloom, you can really ramp up a Quartzmon swing. But in burst mode, Rosemon, you're very dependent on what your opponent plays. So again, if your opponent doesn't play any Tamers and they're just one big stack in raising area, you really lose the value of your burst mode here, which is very frustrating. But still extremely good in, I would say, like 9 times out of 10 matchups. So we play it at a 3 of in here. It is, again, our main win con, but at the same time, I don't know if 4 is quite necessary. If you really want to run 4, you can totally drop Grandel Soul here down to 2 copies, and then you can bump up the burst mode very easily. Speaking of Grandel Soul here, I put it as a 3 of in here, but it can very easily be a 2 of. I have to run some sort of big removal. If my opponent drops something like a Death X, I need to be able to out it somehow. This deck, it caps out at 15k. This 15k burst mode, I can suspend that Death X, but we're still going to be 15k, and I'll have to crash into it at best, and I really don't want to do that. So sometimes Grandel Soul is the way to go. When you would use this card, if you have 2 or more suspended Digimon in play, reduce the cost by 2. So it's a 6 play cost, which is very easily, if you go into like one of your Sunflowers and your token, you put a Togemon on board, they're all suspended. You can make this then a 6 play cost, and then get rid of that threat. So suspend one of your opponent's Digimon, then return one of your opponent's suspended Digimon to the bottom of the owner's deck. Keep in mind, you don't have to return the thing you hit the first effect with. So if they've got 2 Digimon, 1 suspended and 1 not, you can suspend the other thing and then hit the first thing that was already suspended. Same for that security effect here. So that's just, a lot of people, they don't realize it. They don't realize that you can target something else that was already suspended. You don't have to bottom deck the thing that you suspended. So powerful removal card though, probably one of the most powerful in the entire game. Putting something to the deck bottom pretty much puts it out of the game, like completely and entirely for the rest of the game. They can't recycle it out of trash. It doesn't go to their security to buff their security. It doesn't go underneath a tamer so they could like digicross with it. It doesn't go to hand so they can reuse it again. Bottom of the deck is pretty much, this is out, done, move on. And then next we got the Yoshino, which of course is like the heart and soul of the deck. We have to have the Yoshino to do all of our stuff, to do our burst evos. She is a memory setter for us, which is nice. We can cheat her in for free off the Lilamon or make her a 1 play cost off the Togemon. So very efficient card. Getting green's always been super efficient with memory, and this is no different. And then your turn, when one of your Digimon digivolves into a Digimon with Vegetation, Plant, or Fairy in one of its traits, by suspending this tamer, gain 1 memory. So it's a gain memory, but it's a tamer, so memory blockers do not stop it. So again, between all of our rookies here, our Sunflowermon or our Togemon inheritables, we're reducing the Digivolution cost by 1 each, and then the Yoshino as well, giving us 1 memory back. That makes our Mega Evos completely free. So very powerful tamer. Go into our Megas here for free. They're going to unsuspend themselves, and then you're going to bounce the Yoshino to hand to go into your burst mode, who is now unsuspended. And then just rounding out the deck, we threw in 3 agility trainings. I love the training cards. They're just for whatever deck you're running them in. All these rogue decks and like otherwise like kind of awkward decks are now more viable because of agility training, because they're not limited just to Digimon pools. So you can reveal 2, add 1 green card among them to your hand. Just whichever green card. It can be a tamer, it can be an option, it doesn't matter. So I like the versatility of the training cards. Yeah, the dig is only half of a memory boost card, but it's also 1 memory cheaper. And then the delay effect will reduce the digivolution cost by 2, so it saves us the same amount of memory when it comes to digivolving, and for 1 less memory. and more versatility in what we can pick up. I think the training cards are definitely the way to go for your primary searchers now for option cards. But if, some decks, they're still like, oh yeah, like I'll run 4 of the training cards, but I'll also run, 2 or 3 or 4 of the memory boost cards as well. Like looking at those Galgamon decks that just want to pop off as fast as possible. Yeah, it makes sense that they would want to really, really max out on that. For us, though, unfortunately, burst mode is very reliant on our opponent popping off slightly as well. So you kind of want to stall out a little bit with this. You really want your opponent to build up a little bit. That's kind of one of the things I don't like about this deck, is that you have to wait for your opponent to do something, or else you're just kind of going into these big megas and stuff for 1-2 security checks here with no trash effect. And it's the trash effect that really makes this deck super good. It's just very dependent on your opponent doing decently themselves and not bricking. So that is it for the deck. I do think it's a lot of fun. I don't think it's like overly super crazy hype meta or anything like that. But I think it's definitely something you can take to locals and do decently well with at locals, depending on, of course, your local scene. But I think you could still, make top 3 with this deck pretty reliably. It's still pretty solid. I am a big fan of it. But that is going to do it. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you're still here, you haven't already, please like the video and subscribe. We're trying to get to that 5K before we go to Nats at the end of January. Would love to hit the 5K. Please help us out.